Shang Peng of San Jose Hockey Now joins where we play What's More Likely on some of the big topics surrounding the Sharks on today's episode.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, probably part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And Shang Peng, the exquisite, extraordinary, amazing beat writer for San Jose Hockey Now, joins where we discuss, we play What's More Likely, where I pose Sheng with two kind of out there questions about some of the big storylines, including Hertl and Couture's injury, Mackenzie, Blackwood, and Kaapo Kahkonen getting traded, and of Mario Ferraro, his long-term future with the Sharks. So before we get into that, do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you guys by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Also, the Sharks return tonight against the Winnipeg Jets. Game starts at 4:30 Pacific time. Catch every hit, every shot, every goal from the Sharks' hometown broadcast with the SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Sharks. And now it's been a while. Even though I've seen you in person more, I've seen you in person way more, which is actually really weird than you've been on the show. But Shang Peng of San Jose Hockey Now. Shang, how's it going, buddy?
Very good. Well, very busy today.
It's been a bit. We are recording this Monday night because time is a weird thing, even though you're going to hear this on Wednesday. But, I had to get in Fabian Zetterlund. Sorry, Shane, you got bumped for Fabian Zetterlund. So, you got to do what you got to do. But we are going to be playing What's More Likely. It's where I'm going to pose weird questions with Sheng, and we're going to talk about those scenarios. So we're going to start, of course, with the big news of Tomas Hertl. He's going to be out for a few weeks. Logan Couture is week to week right now. Mm-hmm. So what's more likely, Sheng? Neither Couture or Hertl play another game this season, or we actually get to see Couture, Hertl, Nico Sturm, and Mikael Granlund all in this lineup, all for at least one game. Which is more likely?
How about Couture and Hertl come back, but then Granlund or Sturm get hurt? Because that's been the way.
You have to pick one. That's the game. You have to pick one or the other.
I picked the latter. I think that Hertl, with his injury, I know that it's going to be very close to the end of the season, or my guess is that it's very close to the end of the season when he comes back. But I would think that he will want to get some games in. He wouldn't want to start next season with about a 9-month break from games. Yep. That's quite a bit, and it sounds like it's actually, if you read the statement, the most blatantly "we're going to tank" press release I think I've ever read, because basically they say that he could play, but no.
I love it. They're taking a page from the NBA. NBA does this all the time. But they're even more blatant. They're like, hey, like, he's got a cough. We're just gonna send him home for the season. Like, they're worse with it. But I'm going to disagree. I think neither one of them plays for the rest of the season.
Wow.
Neither one of them plays. Here's my thought process behind it, right? You mentioned Hertl, the timeline is going to be really close. And if maybe he wants to get a couple games in, but Grier has to think of the long-term, Grier and Quinn both have to think of the long-term future of the Sharks. And is it worth getting Hertl in for like 5 games in April to get his legs under him?
Lottery.
Or... Right, we saw last year how close the draft lottery was. We're talking the Jonathan Toews breakaway goal away from the Sharks being third and therefore winning the draft lottery. Like, you've come this far, you might as well finish the job. And then with Couture, right? He missed the first, chunk of the season, 51 games or whatever it was. Comes back, plays 5 or 6 games, right? And then he's out again. And we've seen, right, multiple setbacks with him. If we get past the trade deadline and Couture's still not back, why rush it, right? You expect Couture to still be a future part of the Sharks, and we can discuss if they're going to have any trade, if potential trade in the offseason. I don't think either one of them is a realistic trade deadline unless either one of them goes to Grier and says, I want out, like Brent Burns did. I think they both want to be here. They both have said they want to be here. But again, you got to protect the future. The future is the number 1 overall pick. And then having Couture and Hertl, like making sure that they're ready for next year when you're going to have a potential infusion of talent.
So you're saying that Mike Grier is going to make like Woody and be like, hold up, let him cook.
Let him cook. Let him cook.
But
we'll know.
I think
we'll know if something's up if Eklund gets like a Eklund or Granlund. It's like, oh yeah, those guys, and they start going on a hot streak.
They send Eklund down for the Barracuda playoff push, like last
the playoff run. Yes,
we'll know. But I think there's so much time left though, and of course with Couture, it's very early to say that he's not he may not be around the trade deadline, because as far as we know, he could be back within a week, 2 weeks. It's really open, right? He could be back in days, really, if he feels well enough, I imagine. Of course, though, that openness also leaves itself open to, he could be done for the season. He might have surgery and things like that, right? And so it's certainly possible. And like you said, it certainly does line up in the Sharks' best interest, probably, if these guys don't play too many games to end the season. But I think it does go against the nature of these players. I know Hertl says, I can play, but I'm not. But he's going to actually have surgery, and so that will take him out. And so, so it's not like he's just sitting on the shelf for 2 months and not playing when he totally can play. And same thing with with Couture. Couture battled his way back, missed the first 45 games. He could have shut it down at any point. Just said, let's just punt on the season. And I don't think that's his type. I don't think that the Sharks would probably tell him to do that. And so I think that if they can come back, I think that they will, just in time for them to make a Kevin LeBanc-like push at the end of the season.
Noah Gregor's revenge tour 2.0. No, I totally get that, and I think, though, like with Couture, you have to commend like what he did coming back, right? And he talked about, how much of a struggle for him, both physically and mentally. And I think coming back and getting some games in was good for him. But again, like at what point you have to weigh the whole like risk reward of like, is it worth having these guys back in the lineup to play meaningless games in April, especially by then, right? You want to see Bordelot, you want to see Gushin, you want to see Shakir, you want to see some of these young guys who've worked hard in the AHL get their opportunity to play at some point, and that way they get them a taste of it before going into this offseason. So, and another thing we didn't even talk about, like the whole key thing, what if Granlund or Sturm just aren't back, right? Like those are, I know they have a couple years left on their trade deadline on their contracts, but I think if a team comes offering for Granlund, who's had a great season before his injury, or Nico Sturm, if somebody wants to try to really solidify their, bottom 6 lineup with a guy like Nico Sturm, who we know is a great penalty killer, great on the faceoffs, great guy in the locker room, like that could be, just blow the whole thing up where for at least the other plausible where all 4 of them are in the game, right?
Sure. I guess one more thing I would say for Couture too, and actually this speaks to his long-term, because you talk about the mental grind that he experienced, missing action. He said himself that he thought he would never play again, even though that's not what the doctors are telling him, but that's what kind of he was thinking mentally, because that's in the place he was. And I want to contrast Couture and Hertl. Hertl obviously is coming off. If Hertl has played his last game this season, he was an all-star. He showed a lot of the same Tomas Hertl from a couple of years ago, basically prime Tomas Hertl, with the way that he was sneaking through people, controlling the puck, that kind of stuff, right? Couture, honestly, since he's been back, hasn't been that good. And
No.
I think for a guy like him, it'd be great to have even just for his mental kind of place, and even the Sharks to see him kind of have a 5-10 game run. And that could be without Hertl in the line. That could be without Granlund or Sturm if they're traded. But I think it'll be really good for him for the long run. And whatever's good for Couture in the long run is good for the Sharks. And so if he can come back and have a nice 10-game spell, put him some points, feel like he's back on his game, and then go into the season on a high, I think that would be nice, as opposed to going cold the rest of the season, not playing, and then coming back next season and looking at the back of your hockey card and 6 games, 0 goals, 1 assist.
Yeah, at least that assist was pretty epic.
It was a great assist.
It was a great assist and a great, even better celebration by Vlasic. So, I think Couture. I can see that part with Couture with the mental aspect. I think that's something I'm trying to be more cognitive about. Is kind of with athletes and just kind of that mental game. Like talking to Zetterlund about like that mental game of getting traded and kind of just being more. So, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what Mike Grier does as he continues with the number 1 pick. Come on, Mike Grier, finish the job here.
I would just remind one last thing on this. I know the tank and the number 1 pick is most important, but if you look big picture, to whatever, like I said, whatever is good for Couture is good for the Sharks. Whatever is good for Hertl is good for the Sharks, because if those guys play well, then they become they become actually movable. If Hertl plays like he did last year, you're not moving him for anything, right? And so. Nope. Even though it may hurt you in your quest for the best draft lottery odds, again, whatever is good for them long term, I think is good for the Sharks. If they play well, then they keep their value, which is what you need if you want to move on from them eventually.
Or just have them around with the young guys, and that way, that too. All right, before we continue with Sheng, we talk about Kaapo, Kahkonen, and Mackenzie Blackwood, and if either one, both could be traded, or if they just are going to run it back next year. Just need to take a quick break. You shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets for your next big event. That's where Game Time comes in. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The thing I love about Game Time is you actually can see what your seats are going to look like before you buy your tickets. That way you know what your view is going to look like. Nothing worse than getting there and realizing that you have bad seats. Actually, the only thing worse than that is when you go to check out and they slam a bunch of fees on top. With Game Time's all-in pricing, you know exactly what you're going to pay when you go to check out. You can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. And with zone deals, you can pick the section, and Game Time picks the seats for big time savings. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's move on to the goaltenders. So Kaapo, Kahkonen, and Blackwood, Mackenzie Blackwood, have both had really good years, right? I know looking at the save percentage and all this stuff, not that great, but again, we've seen the Sharks team, right? And these guys have played some of the best goaltending we've seen in San Jose in a while. I think it's pretty fair to say. So I pose to you this question: both Mackenzie Blackwood and Kaapo Kahkonen are back with the Sharks next season, or neither one of them is with the Sharks after the trade deadline?
Okay, well, let me first promote an article that I just had come out today. Some of the micro stats, analytics behind how good Blackwood and Kahkonen have been this year. I think that cumulatively, they've been sort of the Sharks goaltending has been the MVP of the Sharks season. They're co-MVPs of the Sharks season. Yes. But anyway, in terms to answer your question, my guess is that it's more likely that they're both back. I would say, if I do a little cheat, that I do think it's more likely that Kahkonen gets traded and Blackwood is on his own before, and they'll add someone to him, obviously, at some point.
I can't picture, for some reason, I cannot get out of my mind Aaron Dell is back in San Jose for some reason. I know he's with the Ontario Reign on an AHL deal. I just can't shake it that he's back in San Jose at the end of the season for some reason.
I'm sure you talked about it. I'm sure you talked about it on your pod, but it was really bizarre looking back on it. And a couple weeks ago, I talked to Barracuda with Patrick Williams on my podcast, the San Jose Hockey Now podcast.
It's pretty
anyway, one of the things I was curious, and I've talked to the other people about it, scouts, execs, whatever, right? Like, man, it was really weird that Barracuda decided to go into a season with 3 young goalies. One of them was injury prone. And that's what you decided to roll with. A lot of teams like to have a sort of a veteran guy there who would also qualify as an NHL number 3. That's what the Barracuda did last year with Aaron Dell. And for whatever reason, the Barracuda decided not to do that this year. And I think that their record has suffered for it. And I think, unlike the Sharks, obviously, you don't get a number 1 pick for having the worst record in AHL or being a last base team in AHL. You want to be good in AHL, or at least you want to be really in the thick of the playoff race. And so I thought that was a very curious move. And I think all the goaltending has been inconsistent. Makiniemi's been hurt a bunch. I talked with one exec. He's like, every time we play these guys, it's a different goalie. None of these are good things. So I was surprised that they didn't bring back a guy like Dell in the first place. And Dell was sitting at home the whole time, right? He was practicing. He was helping out Logan Couture and Jumbo just 2 months ago. Yeah. And so it's not like he wasn't around and available. And so I find it I don't know. I don't know if it would be Dell. So because I just find that curious that he was sitting there the whole time and literally in the backyard and had the keys to the locker room. You know, not literally, but you know what I mean. Come in and out.
His pass still works. They did. Yeah,
his pass still works. Right?
They didn't deactivate that one.
But so I think with Blackwood and Kahkonen, though, I see them more likely to both being back because it's been an effective duel. I think that it's important to have good goaltending, even a rebuild, because that helps.
Yes.
If your goaltending is awful, then it just makes it harder on your guys like a William
everything else.
Right. Everything. Yes. Right. Yeah. The whole domino effect. Or if
that's
you want to throw in a Shakir and past couple seasons in there.
Yeah. That's been the argument the past couple seasons. It's, even discussing the Martin Jones buyout way back in the day. It's like, if the goaltending is bad, it's like that one guy at work who just doesn't do their job and everyone else has to kind of cover for it. And it just makes everyone else's life harder. And so I keep interrupting you. But I agree with you. I think Kahkonen and Blackwood being back makes the most sense because you've stumbled into good goaltending. From Blackwood, it was literally a cast off, and I think if you like the Devils right now would love to have a goaltender like Blackwood in their building because they've struggled
to back for a second round pick.
That's the ultimate flip. But you've struggled, especially since Martin Jones turned into a pumpkin. You had James Reimer for like a half a year where he was really awesome, but it's been you've been wandering the desert to try to find some goaltending. And the year where you're like the worst team in the league, at least you have goaltending to kind of build upon, right?
Right. Well, here's a fun trade idea. How about trading Blackwood back to the Devils and take away the condition on that first round pick? So it's a first round pick no matter what. Just take that condition off and here, go take Mackenzie back. But anyway, I think that it's one of those things where you found something like you said. Also, I want to point out too about Blackwood too. It occurs to me that a lot of people are kind of not killing, but a lot of people are criticizing Grier for Addison, for Stanika. Oh, you're wasting assets, right? And in my opinion, those are good shots on young players with some talent, and you see if it works. And the same thing with Blackwood, right? They threw a 6th round pick. Maybe someone else would have given a 7th. Addison, right? They traded a 5th, way in the future too. Maybe someone would give a 6th, right? And same with Stanika, right?
So doesn't matter.
Take these shots, exactly, especially a couple years from now too. So I find that argument that I've seen a couple of times kind of curious because you're not going to hit on. There's a reason why these guys are worth at the time of the trade a 5th or 6th round pick. They are flawed in some kind of way. They're not all going to hit. And so for one of the 3 to hit and it to be your potential starting goalie of the future, I think is pretty good. And it shows that to me, that's a good strategy. And so, so anyway, I think though with Kahkonen though, obviously because he's a pending UFA, that there's a chance, obviously seems more likely that he's the one to move also too, because Blackwood is a guy that Grier acquired. Kahkonen, it was a Joe Will acquisition. And so that could play a little bit into it, just that Blackwood is Grier's guy. And So we'll see. So I don't know if we'll see both back, but I would pick that over the. I can see both of them getting dealt. That would be wild.
That's how you really take it.
Yeah, it is. It is. And then also too, it would be also like a recalibration of the goaltending trade market that I haven't seen or something like that, right? That 2 goal, yeah. Because I would think the Sharks would need overpayment to basically gut their goaltending at top, right? So it'd be like a first for Blackwood and a second for Kahkonen, which I don't think you're getting. So.
Yeah, and I could see too with Kahkonen, right? Because you saw it the factor last year where he was not a great goalie, and again, I know this team wasn't bad last year, and maybe you're kind of selling high on him right now if you're Mike Grier, because maybe you're like, am I getting this year's Kahkonen going forward, or am I getting last year's Kahkonen? So maybe you could potentially sell high, and then try to kind of scour the veteran goalie market next year in the offseason to try to find a 1B behind Blackwood. Because as we mentioned, the Couture goalies, none of those guys are ready to be playing NHL games, at least even 30 games next year. I know Kaapo Kahkonen's look solid, or not Kaapo, I know Eetu Makini's look solid at times, but again, like that guy can't stay healthy right now. And, you need someone who can play at least 30, 35 games and hope that Blackwood can continue to stay healthy.
Yeah, so, don't say that. I need to cover this team on a nightly basis. Like, I really like covering competence. All right, I'm really
hey, we'll have a bunch of celebrities coming, baby. That's the hope. So, all right, guys. Before we finish up with Sheng and we talk about Mario Ferraro and if he's going to be here the trade deadline 8 or he earns another contract from the Sharks, just need to take a quick break. Start that again. All right, before we finish up with Sheng and we talk about whether Mario Ferraro is going to be traded at the trade deadline or if he earns another contract from Mike Grier, just need to take a quick break. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. I always just like betting on Steph Curry to do cool Steph Curry things because Steph Curry is fun to awesome. And there's nothing better than watching your favorite player do amazing things and then also winning some money on the side. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sports partner of the NBA. All right. Let's talk about Mario Ferraro. So there's, Mario Ferraro is a guy there's been, especially a lot of Leafs fans and a lot of Leafs are kind of circling as a guy as they try to kind of fix their blue line on the fly. I know they dealt with a lot of injuries. Looks like somebody's getting suspended here for shenanigans.
Trade for him right now.
Trade for him right now. Really quick aside, before we get into that, what did you think? Who was in the fault there with the Riley Gregg Riley?
Well, I don't think he should. So I'm not saying he deserved that.
Shang, I gotta edit that.
Oh, do you? I'm sorry about that.
Yes, it's okay.
At the San Jose Hockey Now podcast, we have no rules. All right, guys. No holds bar there. So anyway,
some of us are owned by a news company, so we gotta keep clean it up now. So,
but anyway, it reminds me actually of Pierre Turgeon being cross-checked by Dale Hunter. I think that's probably been cited a bit, right? And that was a 21-game suspension. And I do get that point too. That while Greg shouldn't do that, on the other hand, though, you shouldn't do that either. Too, you shouldn't be hitting people in a post up, even if you don't like their celebration. That's just not the time and place. And so I think that does need a very strong suspension.
Yes.
But it also needs to be probably. I think ideally it needs to be handled or answered in some kind of way by the Maple Leafs with Greg, because you just don't do that. I understand it's emotional game and that kind of thing, right? But that's also showing up your opponent. I'm not really sure how else it looks to people who non-Leafs fans or people that said, oh, he just he's just in the moment or whatever. He's just excited. Okay, yeah, he is, but that's also showing up your opponent, and so that's going to draw some kind of response. And I'm not saying I deserve that, and I am saying that Riley should be suspended for a long time, because you just can't have that. You can't have players hitting each other just because they don't like the other team's celebration. But nonetheless, though, yeah, someone's got to take Greg aside. I don't know if it's the coach or another player, teammate. I mean, just be like, you can't do that.
Score cool goals. That's fine with me. But yeah, Riley should definitely be suspended for a while. So, all right. So back to Mario Ferraro. So I posed this question to you. So Mario Ferraro so far has the largest contract from Mike Grier handed out. So here's the question: Mario Ferraro is traded at the trade deadline, or Mario Ferraro earns another contract from Mike Grier? I know this is a couple years down the line, but which is more likely?
This is actually the toughest one to me because Mario, especially in the last couple of months, don't know if you agree, but I think that he's really picked up his play, especially on the offensive end, and not just off. Like, he's never going to be Erik Karlsson. No one's asking for that, but just in terms of just picking the right moments to rush, making some plays, making that pass and that sort of thing. Right? Things that we haven't seen a lot of, and I know that it's a relatively
this is rookie season, I'd say. Yeah, like since his rookie season, it's
compared to like kind of the rest, like you mentioned, the rest of his career. We haven't quite seen on a consistent basis. But this is sort of the Mario Ferraro that we were all sort of excited and that we were all promised after his rookie season. Like, this was the guy that was okay. Of course, he's never going to be Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, but can he be a guy that's solid defensively? Maybe be on your power play too. Maybe be a guy that could chip in 25, 30 points or something like that, and be a pretty good two-way guy, play a lot of big minutes. We're kind of seeing that right now, and in kind of the worst possible circumstances. This is the worst team that Ferraro has played on. To be it's clearly the worst team he's played on. And one of my criticisms, I like Ferraro a lot, as I've said many times. Everyone knows that, but one of my criticisms of him is that he's a guy that, as much as I like him, he's never kind of risen above his team in a way. And it's because he's a guy, I think he's so frenetic out there. He wants to do so much. He ends up doing a lot of people's jobs out there trying to. Yes. And that ultimately becomes that hurts him. That makes him look bad, and goals go in, makes the whole team look bad. But I think it comes from a good place. But just in terms of individual talent, I think it's a top 4 defenseman. I've always said that, always thought that. But this year, though, he's actually rising above those circumstances. So, this is all kind of a long preamble to say that he might be a guy that could attract a first-round pick. I'm just speculating. In the past, the way he played even before, with sort of his frenetic, kind of maybe mistake-ridden style.
Yeah, we originally called him the Blair Witch Project because he's always shaking and doing stuff way back in the day, like his rookie year.
But he could do a lot with that style too. Though he was tough to beat one-on-one, all that kind of thing, right? With that kind of frenetic style. And I would talk to people last year, be like, I think you could get a second for him, even with his contract and all, just because he was young and people love him off the ice, all the intangibles. Everybody thinks that he is a winning attitude, a guy that you want to bring into your room. So if you can get possibly a second, it's sort of when he wasn't as good, so to speak. Then maybe, I mean, he's 25, but that's the flip side of it, that he is young enough that, and I've theorized a lot about this on my podcast, on the website, that I think the Sharks' plan seems to be to have a lot of cap space in a couple of years and see where they're at with their prospects, and see if maybe that's the time that they can start making moves to actually really try to win. And so Ferraro is definitely young enough to be a part of that team. He's your alternate captain now. He's beloved in the room. He's a great glue guy. He's not like a Couture or Hertl that you can kind of feel as great as they are in the room, that they're in their 30s and they want to win that cup. They're kind of looking at the other side of the fence, kind of, right? And understandably so too. It's no criticism. Whereas Ferraro is, I think, locked in to be locked on to be with the Sharks, and so there's a lot of reason to keep him. And so that's where it's tough, because if you get a good offer for him, and he is the one Shark, I would say right now, that is sort of kind of bandied about in trade rumors, that might be able to actually get you a first straight up without retention, without all kinds of machinations or whatever. Yeah. And so that's got to be tempting. But on her hand, though, there's a reason why a team might be willing to offer you a bit more, because he's young, because if this two-way game is actually legit, then his contract becomes quite reasonable. And obviously,
if he's surrounded by better players, right? Again, like
he can be even. That's always been my theory, right? And so I think that's really tough to say. So I'm going to trend toward, yes, the Sharks keep him, but
he earns a second contract.
Yeah, but I think there's a reason why those rumors are out there too, and there might be a little fishing going on. And I think that offer could be there by the deadline. So yeah.
Yeah. Again, this is what I've struggled with. I as much as I've criticized Ferraro, especially the past couple of seasons, he's definitely been a much more effective player. And I think too, maybe just having different style defensemen, right? You got look at guys like Kyle Burrows, you look at like Emberson, I know he's kind of struggled with injuries, but when he's been out there, he's been, I think, an effective player. Henry Thrun, who's kind of come along, where Ferraro, especially the past couple seasons, has kind of had to be the guy, right? Because you had Brent Burns, who's doing Brent Burns things, and Erik Karlsson doing Erik Karlsson things, and Mario Ferraro kind of had to cover for a lot of this. And I think now there's maybe a better distribution among the Sharks forwards, right, or the defensemen, right? And Mario Ferraro doesn't have to be the top guy every night. You can, if Kyle Burrows is having a good night, if Drun, like I said, we've seen some of these guys kind of pick up the pace and kind of step up a little bit and help out Mario Ferraro. And I think maybe that's putting Ferraro in a position to kind of be the best Mario Ferraro, the rookie Ferraro that we were waiting to kind of see. And it felt like he maybe kind of plateaued over the last couple seasons. So, but yeah, I struggled with. I came up with this question. I've been struggling with this question since
it's the hardest one, I think, right?
It's the hardest one, but that's what makes good podcasting. So, for the sake of it, and I'm gonna say he gets traded because I think some team gets so desperate that they're willing to play up that first. And I think Mike Grier, he knows it's like, hey, yes, Ferraro has been great this year. But again, the Sharks have asked a lot of Mario Ferraro over the past, 3-4 seasons. Are we sure he's going to continue to kind of hold up? We've seen the little nicks and bruises over the past couple seasons, especially when he plays, right? He blocks a lot of shots. He does a lot of stuff. And you've seen, Mario Ferraro, 1,000% a warrior. That dude will, you have to drag him off the ice. But again, I think if someone offers you a first for Mario Ferraro, I think you have to take it, and then you hope that Henry Thrun and some of your other guys can kind of pick up the slack for Ferraro.
I don't know who your number one defenseman is next year. I mean, it should have never been Ferraro in the first place this year, but now you're like, oh, let's take our number one, who's actually number 4 defenseman, off the board, and now our
Shakir McWendell and save the day, baby.
Yeah.
So
no pressure.
But yeah, no pressure. You got some cap space. You can sign somebody this offseason. So we'll just keep every year. Just Mike Grier brings in another Matt Benning, Burrows, the 3x1.1 deal every offseason. It'll be great. So
the long deal, right? Yeah, that no one else will give.
The long cheap deal that you can bury in the AHL if you need to at some point. So Sheng, thank you so much. Of course.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
You can find me at San Jose Hockey Now, at the San Jose Hockey Now podcast, at Sheng_Peng on Twitter, and at NBC Sharks.
And I'm sure Keegan will be on to talk about the bean pot here next episode. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Little lucky duck getting to go to the. I guess he does. That is the one thing about living in Boston. You have to live the terrible weather, but you do get to go to the bean pot. So
a lot of great hockey, a
lot of great college hockey.
And free pretzels apparently.
And free pretzels. And I assume is Dunkin's around every corner. So Keegan, if you're listening, yeah, buddy, hope you had fun. So of course you can follow the show on Locked On Sharks wherever you get podcasts, and of course watch on YouTube as well. Follow on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. And if you've missed my Fabian Zetterlund interview, go back and listen to that, because it's pretty good, if I do say so myself. So until tomorrow, we actually have hockey again. Bye, friends.